department where compounding happens, and then we will get our FCGPRs approved. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Janet. It was wonderful to hear from you that you have taken the challenge of attending to all the past 8 transaction documents to the RBI and addressing this matter aggressively with the department and getting your work done there. And this is what, my dear friends, perseverance is the key for the day. So now, in the same way, when the FEMA was notified in the year 2000, I had the privilege of working on a FCGPR issue in the year 2001 when I started my practice. There was no internet knowledge at that time. There was no RBI website at that time. Hardly few people were knowing about the new FEMA provisions. But then, when we approached with the complete case history of the company with the RBI, they were very happy to help us out and get our work done. So we need to be more positive-minded, and in the same way, Ms. Mohana is here with us, who is having extensive corporate experience. Now she will go through with her experience of handling a transfer of shares from a resident to another resident, but of a foreign JV. So over to you, Mohana.
Every domestic company would like to set their footprint abroad in the globe. And I understand that we are India is among the top 5 countries which would like to grow globally. And it is interested. And most of our overseas investment is in manufacturing and service sector. So I am here to narrate an incident with respect to an overseas direct investment which I had experienced. This was about transferring the shares of an joint venture, shares of an overseas joint venture by an Indian party to another Indian party, which is allowed by the regulation. The regulation says you can transfer the shares of a joint venture or a wholly owned subsidiary abroad to another Indian party or an overseas non-resident. But here we wanted to transfer it to an Indian party. So we were very happy that the regulation permits it. But when you go further down, it says provided and gives you a lot of conditions, saying that there should not be any write-off, there should not be any outstanding dues, the price should be, if it was listed as per the listing price, and if it was not listed as certified by the CPA, not less than the fair price, and all this. These were all fine, we could comply with, but there was one another condition saying that the repatriation should happen immediately and you should notify the AD within 60 days. This transfer is between an Indian party and another Indian party, so the question of foreign exchange involved here was a question which we had no answer. But the regulation allows a transfer between 2 Indian parties. And this Indian party is none other than the group company of the holding company which holds the shares of JV. For a bona fide business reason, we wanted to do this transfer. So we had to move to RBI for this approval. There was one another problem over here. The holding company had also given a loan to the overseas joint venture. So when the equity is transferred to its subsidiary, the loan also has to be automatically transferred, because you cannot have a loan without an equity participation. So it has to automatically get transferred. There is no mention of any loan transfer in any of your ODI notification or circular or regulations, or neither in the master circular. So we had to go for an RBI approval. This was the second thing. The third point over here in this transaction was the subsidiary which was ready to acquire the shares of the JV did not have the net worth. Because as per the regulation, you can invest only up to 400% of your net worth. This JV, this Indian party, the subsidiary company, did not have the required net worth to acquire the shares of the overseas JV. So these were the three points which we were struck with, but the management wanted to have this for business reasons. They felt that the subsidiary company would be able to achieve its financial closure, would be able to achieve the furtherance of its object if this happens, because the overseas JV has an asset which would help the Indian subsidiary company to achieve its object. So this was the main reason. So as an officials, we were not able, we had to find a way out, a solution to this problem. So we wrote to RBI. So I'll just briefly tell you the experience. It's, yeah, there were a lot of clarifications to and fro. It took 5.5 months. Let me tell you, RBI was very helpful. Of course, in the beginning, they were not sure what we wanted, but when you had to, if you are able to explain the rationale of the decision, the business structure in a proper way, provide them with all the documentation that you had done with respect to JV. Let me be very clear here, underline. If you are able to pull out and give all the documentation like APR, ODR file, the date, the time, how you had filed, all this helped RBI in providing, but it took 5.5 months. RBI themselves came up with a suggestion to us that in reckoning the net worth of your company, you can always take the net worth of your holding company or your subsidiary company, which is not utilized by them. This portion appears in the regulation in an explanation part of regulation 6 in 2 lines, which we had missed out. So RBI had helped us even in identifying that, and after 5.5 months we got the approval. We were successful in this transaction. Thank you.
Awesome, Mohana. We are very proud of you. Over to Mr. Purushottam, who has dealt with conversion of ECB into equity shares.
Oh, I would like to share one small incident with respect to conversion of ECB to the equities. A company had issued an ECB, so they wanted to convert that into the redeemable preference shares, because earlier redeemable preference shares were also considered to be equity. In between, after the management taking a decision, there was a notification from the RBI where they had treated it as, again, it went from a equity to ECB. So in that case, we did a lot of research, and then we came to a conclusion that we can issue only compulsory convertible preference shares can be issued. And then we had a discussion with the RBI, and they said this is the right thing. And then we had to issue, convert those ECB into the convertible preference shares. So this way we need to be very careful with these things, and RBI always helps us whenever we want to do corporate activities and all that. Thank you.
Same is my experience as well. A company director who had gone abroad had given money to one of his known contacts abroad to form a company, and the company was formed without passing a board resolution, without going to ODI route, and after 1.5 years, the statutory auditors came across quite a lot of transactions happening between the foreign entity and the local entity. When they saw that the shareholding of that foreign entity is none other than the director of the Indian entity, which is actually the company funding that transaction, then we had to pitch in to get the ODI formalities complied with, and also compounding of this offence, because the company has not done everything as a ongoing process. So even here, RBI has helped us, and my dear friends, the master circulars whichever are there, and the APDIR series circulars whichever are there, and the FEMA provisions and the search engines whatever are there in the RBI website are really very, very helpful. In the same way, we have been seeing a lot of greenfield project. What's a greenfield project? Greenfield project is where there is nothing. It is a battleground. There is no development whatsoever has happened. In such a greenfield project, one of our panelists has undertaken an investment activity. Who is going to share with us? Over to you, Jayan.
Thanks, Padma. In this particular FDI, there was foreign direct investment in 2 tranches. In the first tranche, we had allotment of equity shares coupled with allotment of compulsorily convertible debentures. And as they were equity shares, we had obtained the letter from a merchant banker where the certification of the pricing guidelines were followed and the price of the equity shares were arrived at. And the second tranche came in 6 months later. And we filed all the documentations within due dates, filed FCGPRs within due dates. However, RBI came out with a query saying that the allotment of CCDs are not as per pricing guidelines. If you see the pricing guidelines, and they said that we have violated clause 5 of clause 5, which talks about pricing guidelines. There we highlighted to them, I just present before you the point which we highlighted as regards pricing of CCDs. This could also be a pointer when you are issuing CCDs in the days to come. The price for convertible instruments can be determined. The pricing of shares, convertible debentures, preference shares should be determined upfront at the time of issue of instruments. However, the price for convertible instruments can also be determined based on conversion formula, which has to be fixed or determined upfront. However, the price at the time of conversion shall not be less than the fair value. So we had explained to them how we had arrived at a conversion formula for the CCDs. And though we are not complying with they said you have to price your CCDs at the same price as the shares. We said we have followed the second method, and finally they read this and they said that we have complied, and they said the second tranche came only CCDs, there were no equity shares. So we told them that this is not to be looked at as a standalone. It is the second tranche and it was part of the first investment, and thus we convinced them that they were within the pricing guidelines as in clause 5, and we got the approval. Thank you.
That's superb, Janet. We do have Mohana to share with us her experiences on corporate guarantees and pledge of shares, which is really quite interesting. Though we are overshooting on the time aspect, I request you to hear her experience on this regard.
Thank you, Padma. I'll summarize it in a very brief manner. Just to tell you, this is just to summarize that how RBI is having an open eye to the business requirements and how they come out with the circulars and notification helping us. We had probably in the year 2000, before 10 probably, we wanted to pledge the shares of a JV for the business of a group company. The regulation allows pledge of shares of JV only for the Indian party or for the JV abroad. It doesn't allow for any of your group entities. But in December 2014, there is a regulation which allows you to pledge the shares of JV or the wholly owned subsidiaries in favor of any of your group companies, subject to certain conditions. Those are available in this December 2014 regulation. The same way, when we wanted to provide a corporate guarantee, this was before 2009, to a step-down subsidiary. Of course, you can have a step-down subsidiary overseas. There is, of course, there's no mention of that apart from your master circular and ODI. But we had an operating SPV over there, and we wanted to provide a corporate guarantee to that operating second level subsidiary. Of course, when a public financial institution or a bank want to lend or give a non-fund based facility or a fund based facility, they look for a promoter. And if a promoter is an Indian based, the banks would like to have the guarantee from the promoter, which we were at that point of time not able to give because the regulations provided only a first level step down subsidiary you could provide. But then there was a leeway. I think we applied for approval and we got it. In both the cases we were successful in getting the approval. But later in 2011, RBI came up with a regulation saying that first step down subsidiary, if it's an operating, it's an automatic route, and if it's second step down subsidiary, you can go through an approval route provided you hold 51% and that has an operating income. So the issue over here, what I would like to summarize is RBI is always open and trying to help us. So we as a compliance professional should be vigilant, look for all the regulations and notifications, keep ourselves updated, have a documentation of properly of what structure we want to do and how we are going to present, because this is going to help us in a long run till we end the business or disinvest or come out from it, and we can definitely do a good job as a professionals. Thank you.
Thank you, Mohana. So I hope all of you have been able to get the final legal provisions which each of our panelists have narrated in their live examples. My dear friends, FEMA is not a foreign element. It is our own element. It is our baby. Let's nurture it. Let's grow it. Let's find an avenue for our survival. I thank all the panelists for sharing their experiences and for being with us. All the delegates for having a patient hearing. Thank you. I'm signing off.
Thank you, Padma, for the wonderful panel discussion. The next 10 minutes, we'll be having a takeaway discussions on the FEMA from the participants. Over to Pallavi.
Everybody, I am Pallavi Rao, practicing company secretary from Bangalore. The biggest takeaway for me has been, the interaction between the participants or the delegates itself, because we have a lot of senior members who are coming and, raising their voice against some doubts which they have encountered while, dealing with FEMA. So for, I've not had much of practice. I have been practicing only for 5 years. So for us, it's a learning thing, like, okay, this is something that we might encounter when we are dealing with it. So that's been the biggest takeaway for me. Thank you.
It's really nice to see a bigger room with so many people today on a 5th day of workshop actually. After this intense 4-day workshop so far on FEMA, I would like to take this opportunity to thank ICSI Bangalore Chapter and all the organizers of this capacity building program for organizing this event. This workshop gave us a better insight on various aspects of FEMA like FDI, ODI, export and import regulations, investment structures and policies, to just name a few of